This episode of Top to Bottom is sponsored by Noted Analytics. Are you tired of losing sales opportunities to the status quo? Not seeing meaningful information in CRM to help close deals? Empower your team with Noted Analytics, the first guided selling for CRM platform that uses sales methodologies like gap selling, Medic, and others to revolutionize the way revenue teams capture, evaluate, and measure sales process effectiveness. Start increasing win rates, shortening sales cycles, and growing average sales prices today. Check it out at notedanalytics.com.
And we're live.
Hey, what's up, peeps? You're listening to Sales Top to Bottom. This is your host, Keenan, and I'm with Becc. Becc?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, my lord.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing good. How are you? Can you see is my face too dark? No, it's okay.
That's good.
So, what's the history of that little orange ring there, Becc?
Oh, it's a shop in France. Shop in France. It's it. There's no big history. No big history behind it.
Okay. Do you ever get your furniture back?
I did.
All right.
You should have seen this email.
I am sure it was a work of art.
Oh, my Lord.
Email. Well, speaking of email, we are on to the first segment of this podcast. You like that segment?
I do.
Which is
Email Teardown.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down emails and messages that were sent over to them. Now on to the first email. Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Sorry, they say there's missing a source for some reason. Perfect. Here we go. This one, the subject is any questions about Gen AI Summit at the Emirates Stadium next month? They says, hi, Becc. Do you have any questions about the generative AI for the creative industry summit next month?
I do.
Well, it's September 12th through 13th, Emirates Stadium, London, ? We are eager to see if your company would be interested in attending, as we think this will be a unique opportunity to continue with decision makers in the creative industry. We believe that this will be the largest conference in the world dedicated to using AI to amplify creative and commercial success. We already have almost 200 companies registered. See a snapshot of attendees below. Alongside the industry, we also have government representatives, and this week we will be announcing a short talk from Rupert Daniels, Director, Service and Skills at Department for Business and Trade, UK Government. If the event is of interest to you, your technical or marketing teams, let me share the options available to participate. Attending, we have a registration page here. If you want to drop by for the first day only, let me know and I can generate a code for a one-day pass, discounted 50%. We have pitching slots as a third stream on the agenda, with the schedule to be announced at the end of the month. You can reserve a slot directly on our registration page. We have 2 final presentation slots on the main agenda reserved for partners, and this would be a 10K package with 3 for your team and 2 for clients. If this is of interest, let me know. In terms of final numbers, we are expecting 450 on site next month. To give you a sense of the space, I have attached a picture from the conference we ran in June in one of the 2 presentation rooms we will be using. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you can join us. Please note that I'm sending this email from a wider portfolio production address or event director, blah, blah, blah. I'm happy to pick up emails via our event address. And then they go into, if I can see here, they go into a whole list of every single person that is going to be attending this event, and then a grainy picture of the conference. So, Becc, what are your thoughts on this email?
Can we start over the email teardown? We burned 2.5 minutes on that.
100%. Let me send this live again.
Email Teardown.
All right. It should have.
First time in history we've had to restart the clock because an email was that long. My thoughts are overwhelming me right now. They lead with, do you have any questions? And I'm like, genuinely, About what? They're like, do you have any questions about the summit? I'm like, sure. What is it? Where is it? When is it? Why are you talking about it? Why am I reading it? But I think from the base level, then I'm going to pass to Keenan, oddly enough. I'm going to be short-lived. This is a selfish email. Not only because it's talking about their product the entire time, but it's forcing me, the buyer, hypothetically, to contextualize it for myself, what problem this would solve for me and why it would solve for me, why it would solve that for me. So bare minimum, this is a selfish way to sell where I have to do all the heavy lifting of what I think it would solve and why I think it would solve that. Keenan, what do you think?
I think what you said, at no point in time, in any word or phrase on there, does it actually highlight, outline what I could get from it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to teach me how to build AI? Is it going to teach me how to use AI? Is it going to teach me the future of AI? Is it going to help me get customers? Is it going to help me? Like, I have no idea what this damn conference is going to do. Okay. So that's the first thing. Well, that's the main thing. It's pretty clear. All the other things are so obvious. How long it is. At the end, he starts listing all the different sponsorship opportunities you could have. None of that needs to be in there. All he needs to do is get your interest first. But to try to start telling you what you could buy, this for 10,000, this for 5,000, I mean, it's just, he's basically trying to introduce, sell, connect, close in one fucking email. He went through the entire damn thing, right? So that's what I think. But the other thing, they have a question. This is a real question, but it's kind of a side take. Tell me what it is about our society that when somebody sends an email unsolicited, because I'm assuming this was unsolicited, right?
Yeah.
That we are the bad guys if we don't block it out.
Yeah.
I want to know, I seriously want to know,
right.
From a cultural perspective, how have we gotten here culturally that if we list this person's name and this company, somehow we're doing an injustice when they invaded our private space with an unsolicited email, and we're not bashing them. We're not like saying they're douchebags or anything. We're just simply saying, hey, this is, and if we don't do that, somehow we're outside of some cultural norm. I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to make matters worse, this is to my, what I call holla at ftscript.co, meaning it's my marketing line.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't even to my email, meaning he probably downloaded one of my videos, which makes me now sad out loud. And then he got the email address and he blasted it. Mm-hmm. And to your point, if this was a blast from marketing that was talking about that clearly for marketing, that'd be one thing. But this is from a person, right? So like, and so I'm the bad person if I get triggered all of a sudden.
Yep.
100%. Okay, well, here's the next email. This one is to Keenan. This is a short one called, the subject line is called you earlier. And this one says, hi, Keenan. Just following up on my previous email, we at SINQ believe that a sales growth company could greatly benefit from our staffing and talent management services. Are you currently exploring options for staffing solutions? If so, we'd be thrilled to discuss our offerings and how they might align with your needs. Looking forward to hearing from you, Kobe So. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this email?
The thing that triggered me on this, and people do it all the time, so every salesperson listening, every prospecting guru listening, anybody who gives advice, listen very closely. Don't you ever, ever, ever say to someone, we're convinced that we can help you out. How does it say it exactly? What's the exact phrase there?
Yeah, we at SINQ believe that a sales growth company could generally benefit from our staffing and talent management.
We generally we believe what you can, whatever it is, you can benefit from. You have no fucking idea, and this is why this makes it so bad. We don't need any staffing services. Like, there is absolutely no need for us to have staffing services. We're too small. We don't have high turnover. I don't need staff, and I wouldn't pay the kind of money that you would need to. So it is such a BS argument or statement. It's embarrassing.
And I see trainers saying to follow up, and they are sassy back at you to follow up with like, well, I wouldn't have reached out if I didn't genuinely think that we could help you. I'm like, bro, you haven't proved it so far.
What's funny, what I do is I actually wrote this to him, and I said, okay, please be very specific. Why do you believe we would benefit?
Had they called you?
No, well, if they did, I didn't get it. I mean, I don't listen. I don't answer my phone very often. So, but I did. I challenged him. I said, why do you think that? And he gave me, and then he started talking about his product. And I said, well, that didn't answer the question why you think we would benefit. And next thing I know, he bought my book, and he
Convinced is a strong word.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Sales mythology.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc demystify common myths in our industry. So, and the first myth of today is the average buyer is 70 to 80% of the way through the sales process before they reach out to a sales rep. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is one of the biggest. I don't know who got the data. I don't know who came up with it. I'm not even exactly sure how they quote unquote define through the sales process, but it's absolute garbage. And I'm going to give you a piece of information to support. I was supposed to have this right in front of me. I screwed it up. But people don't even know what the hell they're buying half the time. So they may have quote unquote, what's the word I'm looking for? They may have quote unquote started, researching your product, right? But 26.7% of buyers had started the quote unquote buying process without even identifying the size and scope of the business problem. 27%, right? Then when buying a product or service, what percentage of buying process is defining? Wait, I don't want that one. Hold on. I got another one for you. Hold on. Okay. 26% of people rescope the problem 1 to 2 times. 28% rescoped it 3 to 4 times after the buying process. Let me be clear. What is the average number of times you have rescoped the problem after?
And what percent was that? What percent was that?
3 to 4 times was 28.6, right? And then if you go to 5 to 6 times, it's 13.3. So when you combine them all, right, almost 65% rescope it at least once or twice after the buying process started. If you honestly believe that they're doing all of that before they reach out to the sales rep, you are smoking crack. No, they're not.
All right. What about you, Becc? What do you think?
Well, kind of piggybacking on what Keenan was saying, this might just be my view, full disclosure, but my view is if they didn't rescope the size of the problem after they came into touch with you, then they didn't learn anything new from you about themselves that they didn't know ahead of time. So if you didn't find a current impact that they didn't know, or a future impact that they didn't know, or a root cause that they didn't know, tacking into the size of the problem, and the problem stayed as is from the beginning, then I'm confused on why you were needed as a seller at all. So I would actually think that it's a great sign if they are rescoping the problem, because reality is buyers today, and they're pissed about it, but they do so much self-research because they're convinced by way of their experience that they're going to have to. It's either them or nobody.
Yeah.
Because the sales rep's not going to do it. So they're like, I have to research all these things. So I believe in the stat that 70, 80% think that they're like almost completely through the buying cycle, because from their view, they're like, usually I have to self-diagnose anyway. So other than just getting pricing and signing on the dotted line or not, I don't know what I'm going to learn from a sales rep. But the missed opportunity in that is that sales doesn't have a role. There's no use for the sales rep at that point. Like, in my opinion, I'm like, and you've said it a lot before, like a sales rep is an order taker. If you don't influence the sale. And if you don't, how you don't influence the sale is by not diagnosing or coming up with anything that they didn't know beforehand. So I'm like, so by definition, I'd say 98% of sellers are order takers. And I'm like, here's the thing. There are faster ways to take orders than through an actual person. Just put the options on the website, put the pricing, and PLG has taught us that. So I think that the sales profession at large is just in a very useless position at this point if you don't have the ability, expertise to talk about it, or like to diagnose and do exactly what you're talking about in the room from the jump.
Yeah, we got to keep in mind, right? The complement of converse, depending on how you look at this, to that statement is if buyers are 70 to 80% or 90% way through the sales cycle before they reach out to a sales rep, then what should we have seen in the world of sales ever since that stat came out?
Increased sales cycle.
Other way around.
What do you mean?
We should have seen a decrease in sales cycles.
If
they're 90% through the sales process, then
sorry. I meant increased speed. Yes, lower sales cycle is what I meant. I was like,
an absolute decrease in sales cycles, which has not happened. As a matter of fact, they've actually gotten longer. So this is one of those stupid stats that was somehow picked up out of context that everybody's been running around with. I see more freaking, as you like to say, Brendan's talking about this, and you got to go where the buyer is, and they're 90% through the sales, or 70 or 80, whatever the number is, through the sales, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. Now, they may have done more research on your product online before they reach out to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. They may have learned about your competition, learned about your product and features, etc. But that is not the sales process. The sales process has not gotten any shorter in spite of all the additional information.
Yeah. So I was thinking increased speed, that you're getting faster, but keep going.
All right. We're on to the next myth of today, which is pain selling is the most progressive form of selling. Becc, why don't you start us off with this one?
Well, I feel like most people, it's progressive in terms of that's what most people are doing. That's the most cutting edge to them. But the more and more I dig into pain, and the more and more I dig into problem, and the more I understand the differences, and the more I see the examples, something clicked for me, I think, this week that hadn't really clicked for me in the past, just from a equation perspective. Like, if you're pain selling, there's a number of different downsides. But one of those downsides is pain is bereft of impact. And impact is the whole reason of why someone buys.
Yep.
Ta-da. So like everyone's buying to avoid a certain doomy death in the future, right? That they're like, okay.
Which will eliminate what they're experiencing now and they want to go away.
Totally. So they're like, well, I would argue like, the persistence of that pain, but it's like, oh, I'm not at quota and I believe that I'm going to get fired if this keeps going on. So I'm trying to solve for the future impact that I don't get fired, or I'm diagnosed with cancer. I'm taking all these medications so that I don't die of cancer, or I prolong my death as long as possible. So if I'm pain selling and I'm like, how painful is your condition? How painful is your cancer right now? How painful is your quota? Like, they're in some sort of pain. But what the whole reason that they're buying is pain plus impact. And the impact is the whole driver and motivation to get them to actually mobilize, to actually do something about it. So I'm like, we can put aside for the second that it's manipulative. It's all things that they already knew beforehand. You add no value as the seller. Pain is subjective. They might be wrong in the cause of the pain. But if you're just asking questions for pain and stopping there, I think the biggest impact is that you are missing all of the impacts of why they would buy and all of the unknowns that they don't know, which is the whole point of a seller to begin with.
All right, Keenan, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Why are you just figuring this out now? I literally say in my training, impact is where the motivation to buy lives.
You've never invited me to come watch you train.
Oh, I'm just going to ignore that right now. Oh my gosh. I'm not going there. Next up. Anyway.
I'm still waiting for that sick invitation.
Jesus Christ. I've told you more times to come. And you're like, I don't have time to sit for 9 hours in the training, blah, 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 blah.
I totally will. I totally will. Everyone's watching in public.
Yeah. All right, good. She's got to go now. So, look, I use an example. I got a minute 10 to do this. I use an example in my trainings all the time. It's the idea of the pill. And someone comes to you and says they have a really bad headache. Pain selling, oh, you got a bad headache. Does it hurt really bad? Yeah, it hurts really, really bad. So they say, he's got a bad headache, and you sell this pill. It makes headache go away. A problem seller says, well, tries to figure out what is actually going on. Why do you have that headache, and what's causing it, right? So then that person gets to the fact that you've got cancer, right? So then that person another person goes further and says, oh, you're going to die from the cancer. And what I do is I keep playing that scenario out, and then this pill will, solve the problem, and the person won't die of cancer anymore. So I do this little trick at the end, and I said, how many of you excited that you just found this new person who's about to die of cancer? They only got 4 months to live, and you're going to sell them the pill. They all raise their hand.
Yeah.
And then I say, but wait, how old is this person?
Yeah. Right. They're about to die anyway. They're
Yes.
like 98 and they're lonely as shit and they just want to call it.
Yes. And so all of a sudden, what you thought was a pain, what you kept arguing was a pain that they're going to die, is not a pain. And because there is no impact to that. There's no impact to that.
Which is the whole reason of why someone buys. It's
Yes.
the whole reason.
The whole reason is the impact of why they buy.
So it's like you are leaving out any kind of impact. And it's like, well, I hope that the pain's egregious enough in the present right now. Because to your point, like the headache might be the least of their worries.
Mm-hmm. But if they might think it's right, the average person would have sold someone a pill to get rid of the headache, but it actually wasn't going to solve the actual real problem. And that is they got a brain tumor.
Totally.
And, yeah. So no, you can't pain sell by itself.
We got to do more rounds on pain, but keep going.
All right. Well, with that, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
This is the segment. There seems to be an echo.
There is.
Hold up.
Hold up. To the next episode.
Just now? Did it just happen?
Yeah, just now.
Oh, gosh.
But
Sean
we're
Hurd.
going to
Sean
go
Hurd did
with
something
it
good.
for now. This is the segment.
Hold on. I like what Sean Hurd did. Sean goes, if you're a runner and you have knee pain and you don't go straight to the knee surgery, you self-medicate, recover until you can no longer do that, then you go see an expert and explore what it is. So it's an interesting perspective, right? You just can't run to some solution until you know what the pain is. Now, the self-medicate piece, I don't know. I mean, what are you using as your data to self-medicate? That could be the wrong solution again, right? So I got like half of what he says. I agree. You don't go running to the surgeon for pain, but you shouldn't go running to self-medicate either. You should slow down and stop and figure out what is causing it.
But that's a compliment. Being half right with Keenan is a compliment. Sean Hurd, by the way, is the man. Do you know who he is? I'll tell you about him later. Sean Hurd is.
Okay. Yeah, he's been showing up lately. Hurd, she said you're the man. You get yourself a fan, dog.
Oh. Well,
he is sassy on LinkedIn. He cuts it real.
Okay, well, hey, this is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. And so the first one of today is follow-up emails after discovery when you've landed on a next step and it's past the agreed timing. Becc, take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it. They know their next step. They don't owe you that. And I think it annoys them. And like, if you've done your job correctly, they will come to you. The feedback that's usually given to me is that people enjoyed that about me, is that I won't fall off. I'm like, I either did or didn't do my job. And if I did my job and I think the problem's big enough, then you don't need a reminder follow-up email like your leg's broken, right? So I either didn't find a problem that's big enough, or I did, and I'm just annoying them when they're mid-cycle, is my view.
Keenan, but what about you? Take it or leave it?
Take it all day. Take it. Two things. One is accountability, right? So if for both of us, if you tell me you're going to do something and we're on a track and you don't do it, who knows what could have happened? So yeah, I'm going to remind you. I'm going to let you know I'm still here, that I'm meeting my end of the bargain. So you're damn straight. Once it goes off the tracks, damn straight. The second one, though, also is why it's take it for me, is because I like it when it's done to me. Sometimes I get caught up in things. I saw this really cool saying the other day, and we're all guilty of it. The people who aren't successful most likely aren't successful because they trade what they want today for what they want tomorrow.
That's why they are successful.
No, sorry. Yeah. I'm going to butcher it. The bottom line is they do what they want today in lieu of what they want tomorrow. So they know they want something tomorrow, but they end up doing react to what they want now. So
And
I do
that
that in small
makes
forms.
them unsuccessful or successful?
No, the most successful people in the world don't trade today for what they want today for tomorrow. In other words, it feels really good right now to sit and watch TV as opposed to go to the gym. So we all let our emotions for what we want now drive our actions than our desire or wants in the future. Well, I do that at a micro level sometimes. Like I know that I've got to get some big thing done for the whole company, but right now I'm all caught up in this shit trying to get something for Brady or trying to get a deal closed, whatever. And so when those emails come in to remind me, it's a nice shift to the train. Like, oh shit, I got to get on this. Like it's easy to get caught in the minutia when you're not paying attention. And so those emails help bring me back. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, the next take it or leave it for today is 100% salaried positions for sales. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Leave it. Leave it, 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 leave it.
Becc, what about you? Take it or leave it.
That means no commission, all
No
salary.
commission. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna leave it too. There is a grit to sales that I think people are trying to cancel out right now, which would be a shame.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Look, it's really easy. It's really, really, really easy to know the value of a salesperson, right? So unlike, let's say, an HR admin importer, you really can't calculate that. But as a salesperson, it's easy. You're paying me X, I bring in Y, right? So if I'm going to pay you, let's say I'm supposed to bring in $1 million and you want 10% cost of sales, you pay me $100K. I don't bring that in. You lose all that money. I get someone I pay 50. And then if you bring it all in, I'll give you 125. That's a win-win for both sides.
The hard is what makes it good.
Yeah.
To me, part of it. What was the third take it or leave it? I wanted to know.
No, we'll use it for later. Go next up.
I will use it for later. And with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The Inbox.
Oh, my favorite podcast, my favorite segment. This is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And with that, we have the help of our trusty mailbox right here. Let's see what type of questions.
The ring is the source of my evil powers to answer. It's the source of my evil games.
Okay. So this one is directed towards Becc. This one's from Grayson Hall from New York City, New York. He asks, "Hi, Becc. I watched one of your diagnostic selling webinars, and during that stream, you briefly talked about email deliverability and some of the factors that would impact it. But I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a bit more. So my question is, what are your biggest tips on how to improve your email deliverability health?"
It's a great question. Technical. Watch the webinar and come back for more. So if I level set, if you have less than a 50% open rate, you likely have an email deliverability problem. The best thing that you can do is set up a custom tracking link. That's the boring tip that no one wants to hear about. So I'll rattle off some tips, but set up a custom tracking link, figure out if you're blacklisted. Those are going to be the two biggest ones. No more than 50 emails per day. Can't batch them out all at one time. Can't do them equidistant, like 105, 110, 115, 120, 125, et cetera. Because Google's looking for non-human behavior is what they're looking for. So subject lines that are all the same are really going to hurt you. Keep in mind, it won't just hurt you. It basically hurts the entire team as well. The more links, the worse. If you click on the links and they go to a broken path or a non-verified site, the worse. Exclamation points will hurt you. More exclamation points will hurt you. If you have like a newsletter, all one image is going to hurt you. There's a list of different words that are spam words: problem, discount, solution. The word free is going to hurt you. Red font's going to hurt you. So those are the tips from a high level. I can send you out a list of all the words that I conglomerate against the sites. But I would say the biggest two tips that I would have apart from custom tracking link is no subject lines that are the same, which is where most reps are going to mess up, and no more than 50 emails per day. Otherwise, you're going to hurt your email deliverability, not only for you, but for your entire team. And it's kind of like a running score, right? So it will improve if you give it time, but it's better if you're using Google or Gmail, because then they're sending Gmail to Gmail, so then they can source out who the bad boy is essentially in the equation. But those would be my biggest tips from email deliverability perspective. Oh, no using LinkedIn in the actual subject line, because then it'll flag it to promo or social.
All right. Well, this next question is directed directly to Keenan. This is from Melanie Garcia from San Diego, California. And she asks, hi, Keenan, big fan of gap selling and have gone deep into your deal management content in specific. My question is, as a sales manager, how do I know the right times to review an AE's deal, and how often should I review them?
So the right time, well, yeah, before you start worrying about reviewing them, you better get good at making sure that putting the right stuff in there and they're getting them in there. So you got to make sure that the organization understands what content should be in there. So before you worry about reviewing them, you should be clear that the whole organization understands what content or information or data should be in them, and why does that data matter, and how does that data drive the probability of success. So then you know what you're looking for. Obviously, if you're a gap selling organization, then we make it really simple for you. We tell you what it is. It's the problem, the impact, the root cause, and the desired outcome, bare minimum. Then it's also the physical and literal, the emotion, problem solved, et cetera, et cetera. So once you have that, then you want to review it at least in the first day or two that it goes in. That is the most important time. The faster you can look at that deal and see what that person learned in the discovery and have an assessment of the size of the problem, the faster or more time you have to self-correct, to get back to the buyer, et cetera. When organizations now are going and they're looking at deals that have been in the pipeline for 2, 3, 4 months, so they're slated to close in the next 25, 30 days, and they've been in there for 2 or 3 months, and you find holes, you know how hard it is to go back and make any changes? You know how hard it is to create any influence? And that it's impossible. So the earlier the better, and about 2 or 3 times.
One I forgot is Google just released, basically you can have a verified, kind of like on Twitter or LinkedIn, it can be like this person's verified. You can now do that with your Google email address, by the way. I just saw that today for everyone who wants to know.
Well, hey, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to avoid wasting your CRM investment. Keenan, why don't you start us off on this one?
Look, I have seen, let me start over. It's embarrassing. The sales world should be embarrassed with how they're using their CRMs today. Does that mean all of them are using bad ones? No. Or doing it poorly? No, but the majority are. For 2 reasons. One, management is doing a terrible job of holding salespeople accountable. Salespeople are just too lazy and don't want to put the information in there. 3, they use it simply for a forecasting tool, right? Most CRMs use a forecasting tool. Here's the CRM. Here's all the deals. Here's when they say they're going to close. This is the percentage they're going to close. And they look at it from a very, very high level in a way. Here, I'm going to create a metaphor or an analogy. Watch this. How many of you know the difference between technical trading and fundamental trading? So in the world of trading, technical trading is recognizing trends within the market itself. So they'll notice things like, for some reason on Labor Day, stocks tend to fall on an average of 2 to 3%. They'll notice changes in the technical movement of the market as a whole, and they do not spend a lot of time focused on the fundamentals of the individual companies. So when it comes to CRM use right now, what we're doing is most people run it like a technical trade. They look at all the data in there. I got 50 accounts, or 500 accounts, or 1,000 accounts with these close dates, and on average we have a 30% close or a 10% close, and then we have the best case, least case, and they fucking move all of this shit, and they try to assess what's going to come out the back end. Nobody pays attention to the fundamentals of each individual opportunity. and why that opportunity should close and what the problem impacts out of the organization and what happens if they don't close, the whole, why us now, and why if you don't, or whatever that shit is, right? None of that's happening. And it's not happening because no one's using the CRM correctly, because nobody's holding them accountable. They don't know what information they should be capturing in the first place, and they don't know how that data impacts the ability of the salesperson or the manager to actually influence the sale. Becc, back to you.
Back to you, Becc. What are the fields you'd suggest?
All right, I said that a minute ago in the very beginning. For gap sellers, look, at this point in time, I don't really care, but for gap sellers, it's bare minimum: problem, impact, root cause, physical, literal, desired outcomes. That's the 5 without doubt, right? Because if you can get to the problem, you can get to the impact, you can get to the root cause, all described, all defined. You can outline the desired outcome. Oh, now you can calculate the gaps. You got to add the gap in there. So that's 6 now, right? If you do all of that, and a manager can go and look at that, and it's quantified, and they can see the cost of inaction, then you now know what you need to do with that deal. You know how to navigate it. You know what to do if they go dark, etc.
All right, Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think that's a great shift to have. I think usually the CRM is more for sales ops than it is for anyone else, which is sad, because it should be equally amount for the rep as it is, that the rep has to manage. But the fields that I would suggest putting in, well, the first is, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but you either put in the work up front, or you deal with the mess in the back, end, one of the two. I would rather put the work up front, so then it's gravy from there on out, not only from a management perspective, then I know what their work is. So I'm like, is this right work, wrong answer, or vice versa, or both of them right, or both of them incorrect? Fields that I would suggest putting, so I'm always going to be more numbers than Keenan. His concept, I'm always going to multiply it by 3. Usually in terms of granularity. So the 21 that I would suggest is their self-diagnosis, what the prospect has self-diagnosed, what they've self-diagnosed as the problem, meaning the metric thing that they want to solve, what they've self-diagnosed as the root cause, current impact, future impact, current event trigger, the last thing that made them buy, future event trigger, the thing that's going to happen in the future that warrants them solving for in the present, and the solution. The second should be the rep's diagnosis, what they think the problem is, what they think that the root cause is, current impact, future impact, blah, blah. And then the latter 7 for unknown problems. So then I could diagnose for my reps, like, okay, are they agreeing with their prospects 100% of the time? Do they always think that their prospects has the right root cause and the right problem, the right current impact and future impact? Are they ever adding any impacts that the prospect didn't know that they, walking in the room? And are they also finding any unknown problems? So I can not only figure out, like, where is this sale from a diagnostic perspective, but how much value is my rep actually adding in the room? Most of them are going to fall short all on step 2. They can't develop their own diagnosis because they're not an expert. So then I know where I need to train from a statistical perspective, per rep, of if all those fields are blank or all those fields match step 1, of what the self-diagnosis is, and you're not like uncovering anything new, then that can be a really big problem. So those are the ones that I would suggest having, and that they can't move it or accept it into pipeline or send a second email unless they have filled out those fields at minimum with a not available, or nope, didn't get it, blah, blah, would be my suggestion.
So the thing that, as I said over and over, this isn't as much a problem as commitment as it is to complexity. Like, I don't think it's complex to do this, but organizations don't do it. I just don't think they see the value. And so until people can start showing them the value, they can start seeing the value, they're not going to. So I'm going to end my piece of this with a quick story, right? I had a client today, rather large company. When I say rather large, top quartile of the Fortune 500. They came to us and they described their problems. And I'm going to give some rough ones, but not accurate, right? Basically, one of the problems is they were a distant third in market share. Was not happy about that. Mm-hmm. They were flat in growth. They had a couple of things, I'll just leave it at that, that were attached to their product set that had longer revenue implications. But if they stopped selling things, this add-on piece, the revenue would start to decline. So it'd be latent revenue when they first sold it, but then after they sold it, they continue to gain revenue, even though that product may have been gone or whatever, they would continue to have revenue coming. But because not selling as much, that revenue from things they sold in the past was starting to get to be a shorter runway. Am I making sense? Doesn't matter. So then they also told me all this other stuff, right? I won't bore you with it all, but they told me all this stuff. Well, we talked 90 days ago, and we got a verbal that they wanted to do some work, but they had to go out and do a few things internally. That's all I'm going to say. Well, I reached out, and I kept getting kind of pushed off by the people who were supposed to get the job done, not by my contact who wanted to get it done. So where am I going with all this? After repeated what I felt like were stalls or inaction or incompetencies or whatever you want to call it, I finally sent an email today that said exactly what the problems were as they described. And I said, we've lost 90 days to solve these problems. Are they persisting? If so, now your revenue runway that you were afraid was 12 or 24 months out is now only 9 to 20 months out, 21 months out, right? The problem you said about market share and the fact that you're declining has now declined an additional 90 days. So the only reason I could do this was I was able to go into the CRM, go specifically to the fields and see the problems and see the numbers as they were shared. And I made a case that basically said, I'm confused here. If we continue at this rate, you are not going to reach your goal of turning this around and getting to 2% annum. And then I was simply able to say, have you solved? And if so, great, I'm out. And if not, is it persisting? Is it getting worse? Is it the same? And what are we doing in the most respectful way? Now look what I've done with the client. No, I'm just checking in. No. I'm literally dropping the problem they reached out in the first place in their lap. And the decision now is, do we waste another 90 days or do we fix this? And if they waste another 90 days, it has nothing to do with me, my product, our services. Is they don't think the problem's big enough. They're willing to go down with the ship, but you can't do that if you don't properly leverage a CRM to capture the data that matters.
I agree. You want me to burn it?
Yeah, Becc, why don't you close us out?
One of the biggest unknown problems I know of in the AE realm is they're accepting or not accepting based on subjective criteria like need, timeline, authority, blah, blah. And so I believe in my core that the conversion rates in everyone's CRM and industry at large, so 6% on outbound, 35% on inbound, people falsely hybrid it to 20. I feel they're all bullshit because they're not based on a static point.
What do you mean a static point?
Keep going.
Objective criteria. Well, objective criteria on like a problem basis of like they're not hitting this metric or they are this buyer persona, etc.
Yeah.
You got me to break my rule.
Well, hey, with that, we are on to the last segment of this podcast, which is...
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc share what's on their mind and give us their closing thoughts. So, Becc, why don't you start us off with this? What is your just one more thing?
So my just one more thing is I'm going to tell a short-ish, I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can, story that I've gone through for the last couple months, but definitely recently. I'm applying for residency in France. So I won't get into the long and the short of it, but I was having some trouble and an application got closed out, so I opened a new one.
Yeah, remember you so to pick up, you told us about this the last one. Yes.
Yeah. So I essentially, you have a certain amount of days to come here and apply for a residency permit. After 2 months, the French government has to say something. They extended my residency permit. We went into a back and forth. The form didn't get submitted on time. They closed out my file. We had to open a new one 3 days before my extended permit was up. And we were asking them for another extended permit. So you can only be in France for a certain amount of days. 90 days as a tourist. And so I was paranoid for the last month, lost sleep over it, stomach ulcers, because I could not get an answer on what I should do next. So I was scouring through for lawyers. And I explain, and how France works is in August, basically people just take August off. Contacted a lawyer, and they only work by referrals. So I contacted a lawyer, you need to talk to this guy. Contacted that lawyer, you need to talk to this guy. I'm not back till August 29th. Contacted this lawyer, get pass. So I find a lawyer online, and I'm like, I want this guy. He looks like a shark. So call him or email him and explain out all of my details. And I'm like, can you please help me? And you know me with details. I'm like, I went in deep because the impact to me is I either would miss a couple of conferences back in the US. If I did go back, they might not let me back in, not only now, but ever, depending on how much I overstay my visa. So the impact's high. I already have an apartment here. I'm decorated, like on and on I go. Point being, detail out of the list. He goes back and forth with me, and he said, I think you've applied for the wrong thing.
Oh,
Why don't you come in on Monday? Okay, this is where it gets worse, Keenan. So I can't sleep over the entire weekend. I can't sleep. I'm like, what is going to happen on Monday? He said, you need to apply for a long-term visa. So I walk on Monday 6 miles to go see this guy in person. I won't even get into why, in snow. And I show up to his office, and I walk in, and there's crap all in the chairs. And she's like, let me see if I can find a place for you to sit. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I was like, I'll just stand. And he comes out. I'll never forget this. He goes, how you doing, Rachel? I'm like, how you doing, Rachel? I didn't correct him. And I'm like, doing okay. Can we get to business? He was 15 minutes, late. So I go into his office, crumbled chips on the floor, just books everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. So I started asking him I started explaining some of the story. He goes, I think I know what happened. Can you tell me a couple of lines to remind me? I'm like, both of those statements scared the crap out of me. You think you don't even know my name, much less my file. You have already prescribed something to me that made me lose hours of sleep. So I started explaining to him. I'm like, so I originally came here on March 25th. I applied for my first on visa April 7th. He stops me and prescribes something. He's like, you need a long-term visa. And I'm like, hold on one second. But I already had a short-term visa that was issued from the government. Oh, you're good then. You need a residence permit. And I start cramming some more details. He keeps cutting me off. And I'm like, well, I got he said, so it expired on May 31st. I'm like, no. If you looked at my email, I said I got a prolongation from the prefecture, and he cuts me off again, prescribes something else. I tried to put some more data in there. Then he prescribed something else. Then I finally stopped him. I said, Haywood, I'm going to need you to listen to me. Okay? This is very important to me. He starts to listen as much as he can, but he's sitting on his hands because I'm like, you're a normal sales rep. He calls in someone else from the outside. This girl comes in, and he starts to speak French to her. And I'm like, your French is trash. It's like the same level as mine. I'm like, I didn't hire a translator. I hired what I thought was a lawyer. She comes in. She asked me a couple questions. And then she said, wait, so your visa technically expired on 7/30? I said, correct. And she said, you already have an open application for the residence permit. And I said, correct. She said, and that will mandatorily be done in 2 months. I said, correct. And she goes, but you haven't used any days outside of that. And I said, well, hypothetically, if those tourist days don't count while I'm here for a visa, then no, I've been here 0 and I have 90 days extended and I'm completely fine. She goes, that's correct. You're completely fine. And I said, thank you very much. I look back at Haywood and I'm like, dude, you would have prescribed me 4 different legal I was ready to leave France on Wednesday, spend thousands of dollars in hotel bills in New York, basically be terrified that I couldn't come back, all because you misprescribed 3 things because you didn't have the expertise, you didn't ask me any questions, and you didn't freaking listen. So the moral of the story is this. When your prospects are talking, shut the fuck up. Ask them more questions. Do what you got to do to diagnose, build an expertise, because in this case scenario, my livelihood, mental state, entire lifestyle was in this guy's hands. And if that second girl hadn't have been there, I'd be back in New York right now. So the responsibility of a salesperson is just that. But the opportunity is now, guess what I think of that girl? Is I'm like, thank you so much. And Haywood's like, if you want to hire us in the future, I said, you're clearly fired. But her, I'll call in October if I have any problems. Nice to meet you. Walked out the door. That's my story. Sorry for the F-bomb. Keenan, what's your just one last thing?
Oh, no, I'm good. That was a great one. We're going to end on that.
Okay. Sorry for the F-bomb, y'all. I hope no one's kids were listening.
Well, that's our podcast.
All right, y'all. I'm Keenan. Y'all been listening to Sales Top to Bottom.
And I'm Becc. See you next week.
Peace out, y'all.